Last time we talked, I had the discussion with the unfaithful spouse of what is it costing you to not talk about the affair? The number one retort, if you will, is, Samuel, I can't talk about the affair without my spouse raging. I get it, and to be honest with you, and I prefaced my last video blog with the fact that this would be a two-part short series. And today, I really want to speak to you, the betrayed, because I do think that somewhere statistically around about 70% of the time, the betrayed spouse deals with massive anger and rage and hurt and pain, and it's completely understandable. But while it is understandable, today I want to give you some perspective to help you get beyond just being stuck in anger. Now, my disclaimer for you is the fact that this video blog could touch on a very raw part of your heart right now, betrayed spouse. I don't, at any level, wish to try and poke the bear. But in order to be true to the process of recovery, if I speak to the unfaithful, I've got to speak to the betrayed. Because my goal, my hope is to help move you through this difficult time. If you are just about a few weeks or maybe even a month or so into recovery, this will be a little bit harder to grasp. If you are a few months into recovery to a few years, this will help you immensely. At least I hope and pray that it helps you immensely. So today, what I thought would be good would be to speak to you, the betrayed, in a very strategic yet gracious way on what it's costing you, the betrayed, if you cannot talk about the details of the affair with boundaries and parameters and a sense of protection for both of you. Because the fact is, you are being faced with having to talk about an addiction or an affair, which is one of the most undermining things to your life and identity. And to think that you are going to react perfectly is absurd. To think that you are going to be able to handle it without anger or emotion is just ridiculous. Having said that, though, and again, this is why this is for those that are a few months in, there has to be an approach that has boundaries, or else the whole process will break down. It's absolutely understandable that your heart has been wrecked, but we've got to help you create boundaries, or else the whole process is going to break down. You're not going to get unstuck, and you're going to continue to possibly want to give up on recovery, not because of the infidelity per se, but because of the inability to gain any ground, and the process is killing you because you guys keep fighting and yelling and screaming, and you can't get any clarity at all. So today's blog is not to tar and feather you, betrayed. It's not to tell you that you're wrong and that you're a mess and that this is not a video blog for the unfaithful to use against you. But this is speaking to you to help you understand that there are several things that the betrayed spouse will do out of hurt and pain that will really create difficulty, like using the information and shaming your unfaithful spouse, or marathoning where you're talking for 2 or 3 or 4 hours at a time. And that really makes it impossible to generate momentum. Most discussions about details or about the infidelity or the addictions should typically take around 30 to 45 minutes, and then you're probably going to need to take a break because it's highly emotional and very challenging, and it requires all of you to be able to have that discussion without storming out of the room or throwing something or raging or what have you. I was talking to a spouse just the other day, and they said to me, you know what, if they don't want my anger, if they didn't want my rage, they shouldn't have cheated. And I had to say to them, listen, man, I get it, I understand, but this isn't helping. This is causing your spouse to resent you even more. You're shaming them, torturing them, and they are eventually possibly going to give up. You are stuck in your anger and your rage. And they actually said, I don't want to take a timeout. I'm not going to use the timeout protocol. I don't get a timeout for my hurt and pain. Why should they get a timeout for my rage? And graciously, I said, because if you don't take a time out, you're going to end up giving up on the marriage simply because of the process breaking down, not because of the infidelity. And as long as you continue to do this, you're driving both of you apart, and he's already driven you so far apart. Do you want to continue to expand the Grand Canyon that's already in between you two? So to start the discussion, by not having boundaries and by not being able to communicate without this rage and this lashing out and this marathoning, it's costing you, number one, intimacy. Because what's happening is the unfaithful spouse will continue to pull away, and they may not talk, they may not answer, they may just take it, but internally they are growing further and further away from you, and they're resenting you more and more because there isn't an opportunity for them to humbly communicate with you out of their shame, out of their hurt, out of their embarrassment. And so if they can't communicate with you, and if you are unable to communicate rationally and graciously, I didn't say unemotionally, but as long as you get stuck in this paradigm, you're going to miss out on intimacy because the anger is winning every time you talk. Number two, you're missing out on answers to your questions because the anger communicates to the unfaithful that they can't or don't want to tell you the truth because it's only going to make you angrier. And so they're experiencing this kind of white-hot rage, so why would they give you more information? Or why would they maybe admit that they are struggling with A, B, or C? Because they know that you're going to, again, I'm sorry, but lose it. And so if you lose it, it's going to push them further away, and they're going to withhold more and more information because the process isn't safe. And as long as the process isn't safe, there is an inability for you to connect or be intimate or to get the answers that you so desperately want and need. Next, and I think this is probably one of the most critical points, is that typically the betrayed wants to see vulnerability and humility from the unfaithful. When anger is ruling and when you cannot communicate with boundaries, you are missing the opportunity to see humility and to see them at a broken level of just a sense of helplessness or a sense of failure or finally letting their guard down or finally just humbling themselves. As long as your anger is kind of raging and dominating the situation, you're not going to see them humble themselves. You're going to see them maybe have false humility. They'll start to kind of be defensive and they'll turtle up and they'll kind of, just give you these ridiculous, yep, I'm terrible, I know, I'm worthless, I know, you deserve so much. That's not humility. That is not vulnerability. As long as you allow the anger to take center stage, as long as you don't have boundaries or use the timeout protocol or don't take breaks, if you will, in the process, you're not going to see the vulnerability that you so desperately want to see in the heart and in the eyes of the unfaithful. Now, in summation today, I know that it can appear as though I'm telling you, the betrayed, can't have any emotion, got to be perfect, got to keep it in check, you've got to be perfect for poor little unfaithful spouse to feel safe. Absolutely not, and I've tried really hard to throw lots of caveats out there. The process has got to be safe, and if the anger is in charge, we've got a problem. If shame in the heart and the mind of the unfaithful is in charge, or condemnation, or this stonewalling is in charge, we've got a problem. If the process is in charge with boundaries, with parameters, with a timeout protocol, we can find great healing and great momentum for both of you.